Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Main Event Comedy Podcast. I'm Gene Jackson, and as always, I'm joined by Mr. Wes Sears, the one and only Shane Knowles, and of course, the new face in the place, our resident current wrestling expert, the one and only Mr. Tyler Fitzgerald. How we doing, guys?
Good, man. How are y'all?
Doing good.
Everybody have a good
On
Easter?
location in the car, pulled off the side of the road because I was not going to be late this Sunday. So,
Well, we appreciate your dedication, sir. We
yeah,
really do. So, did everybody find the eggs? Do we have a good Easter?
Absolutely.
All right.
I didn't find that
Good
many.
day.
Good. Well, we had a pretty exciting week in wrestling. We're going to get to that in a moment, but I'd be remiss if we didn't mention before we get into all the wrestling goodness. Coming up, April 27th, we return to Atomic Johnny's with a whole nother lineup of main event comedy. This time we are going to be joined by Mr. Joe Odom, Mr. Austin Church, and Mr. Kenny Henson. Some comics that are getting known around the Birmingham area going to come down here to Gadsden and hit the stage with us. And of course, our good friend Wes Sears is going to be doing the hosting, emceeing, and leading the way on that one. So we're pretty excited about that. Saturday, April 27th at 8 p.m. at Atomic Johnny. So if you haven't yet, and even if you have, please join us. It's always a fun time. And I know, Shane, we'd kind of already talked about last month's show when you came in. Is there anything you want to touch on about last month's show real quick before we get into the wrestling portion of the program?
not really. I mean, I thought we had a good lineup. I mean, I thought everyone worked hard. Unfortunately, the attendance wasn't there, and you know, get humbled a little bit on my end because I went on record as saying I thought we would do more than we did in February, and we didn't even approach those numbers. But there's nowhere to go but up.
I mean, there was no rhyme or reason to it. Everybody I've talked to seems to think that the big factor in all that is most likely the fact that we were heading into spring break that week. A lot of families had gone on vacation. Also, the fact that you had the big Gadsden pub crawl the weekend before. So, a lot of people had kind of had their big night out in downtown Gadsden and kind of, was spent from that. So, I think we had a lot working against us, but we had a good lineup. We had a good show, had a lot of fun, and we're just going to keep forging ahead. So, we got a fun lineup coming up on the 27th. We hope everybody comes to join us. Now, we're going to tackle a couple of quick news stories in wrestling before we get down to what everybody's here for. I meant to mention this last week, but we got on some other topics and I didn't mention it. But Jesus, Ronda freaking Rousey cannot shut her mouth about just dogging the WWE. She's out promoting her book. Apparently, there's a lot of talk about WWE and Vince McMahon and everything in the book, and just how terrible it was, apparently. But I find it odd, that she came in, she went away, I think she went and had a baby or whatever it was, but then she came back. If this was so terrible, why did you come back a second time? You know what I mean? And the second time around, Vince really wasn't around that much. That was when he was already kind of persona non grata. So I know you guys have been reading a lot of the same quotes I have. What are your thoughts on Ronda Rousey and her sudden, just complete distaste for WWE?
I mean, I'll go ahead and start it out. So, I mean, I was going back and watching her matches. I went back and watched her promos. I understand the name because of her UFC career, and she had a fantastic UFC career. Don't get me wrong. But she wasn't a wrestler. You know what I'm saying? Like, her promos were garbage. I mean, she had absolute horror. So, like, to bash a company that gave you an opportunity and gave you a chance, which at the same time, I feel like they could have actually trained her up a little bit better. I don't know. I mean, I'm still like, why are you talking? Like, I don't give a shit about what Ronda Rousey has to say. Like, You know, it's kind of like Goldberg, Ryback, fucking Sid Vicious on Twitter. Sid Vicious said he wants to boot Ronda Rousey, and then like 3 days ago said he wants to firebomb her. So
Are we
like,
convinced is that really Sid Vicious?
I think it
Is it
is,
anybody?
dude.
Is it even anybody? My theory is if it is if it's, I don't think it's, I can't imagine Sid Udy is sitting down with his phone tweeting these things. I think the same type of people who started running all of Virgil's social media accounts, that started all the, meat sauce and breadsticks nonsense and all that kind of stuff, are doing the same thing for Sid. Because I mean, I don't know the man well. I've met him a handful of times, and just everything I know about him, I don't think that's Sid Vicious tweeting this shit. But it's fun to read, nonetheless.
I mean, he could be trolling, just having a good time.
I can't imagine Sid Vicious sitting in the dugout of the weekend softball game tweeting about Ronda Rousey.
Exactly. And never mentions ruling the world at any point.
Yeah, I mean, just weighing in on Ronda, like, I think it's kind of crazy that it seems like she's just kind of joining in on the train of like railing on Vince and WWE just with the recent news. But I mean, this is a company that kind of took you when you were at your lowest point in your UFC career. She had, her whole aurora was that she was unbeatable, and then she lost, and then she lost again. So many of those people get lost in the shuffle once their, big run is over. WWE got her, said, we'll give you this opportunity. I mean, they put her in some big angles right off the bat, with the whole Triple H and Stephanie deal. I mean, they did a lot to try and like save her image and still make her, presented as like this badass, that's, not to be messed with, even though the end of her UFC career, she was anything but. I mean, she was just a punching bag for Holly Holm, and she fight Nunes. I think she maybe did. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they rebuilt her brand basically. Like I said, she became a jobber at the end of UFC and was kind of a laughing stock amongst a lot of people. And I was kind of nervous when they brought her in. Like, are you going to be able to overcome this reputation she's got? And they did a great job with it. And like so many other people, like, so when they're bringing her in and they're treating her like a star and they're putting in there with Triple H and Stephanie, and she's, having a thing with The Rock, initially when they first introduced her at a WrestleMania, and they're putting, she's one of the first women in a main event at WrestleMania, and she's winning titles. She was very thankful for WWE. She couldn't say enough good stuff about them. But then her second run, she comes back with the raccoon eyes, and, she's clearly not as invested personally, it seemed to me, in her second run as she was the first. And, when they didn't push her as hard, now all of a sudden the narrative is they were just terrible. And the whole thing about, I pulled Triple H aside and said, I can't be involved in this. What was the phrase she used? Mediocrity or whatever. I mean, that's a bit much. Gary Wooldridge, who are all these fucking guys? They're not from Mississippi, so I wouldn't expect you to know them.
Fuck Gary.
He's in his own world over there. There you go. Well, you would think you did know him, because that's what most people say about Gary over there. But just kidding. Gary's my buddy. He's involved with EPW over there. They're doing some great stuff over there at EPW Wrestling in Booneville, Mississippi. Check that out if you get a chance. They have their own Roku channel now, so you don't have to just find them on YouTube. You can download their Roku channel, so that's pretty cool. So we're not gonna give Ronda Rousey any more time than we already did. I just felt that she's just another one of these people that are kind of piling on. What was you gonna say, Shane?
Oh, I'm just going to say the main thing to remember, much like Rebel Wilson, who I've seen in my newsfeed for the last 10 days, both of them have a book to sell. And fairly or unfairly, if you're telling just the good portion of your career and your life, it's not going to move on the Amazon bestseller list. So all the salacious, nasty, interchangeable, backhanded shenanigans stuff is what's going to get out there. And much to what you guys were talking about, when she first came out at the Royal Rumble to the Joan Jett song, place went electric. Social media goes electric. I love that match with her and Charlotte at Survivor Series. Kendo sticks and chairs. You don't see a lot of that in women's wrestling. Not certainly among top tier on the women. the triple threat at Mania, but much like you mentioned, when she went away, that second run, Ronda Rousey to me was just another wrestler in the division. The star aura had went away, whatever was going on with her and Shayna Baszler, and probably fairly or unfairly, she was probably looked at to be the female portion equivalent of Brock Lesnar. What he had done, having, even though it was wrestling first, then in UFC, like that aura when Brock comes out, when he's involved. And I think a lot of people looked at Ronda should always be that way. And like Tyler said, I don't know if she was as invested, or maybe Gene said it, that second go around, like we're just finishing out the streak here and, get the paycheck and get out of it. What I wonder about, what was with her weird dalliance with like one match at Ring of Honor,
Well, I was
one
just
match
about
at
to
another
say,
place,
if you want evidence of how little weight she carried leaving the WWE, I mean, she slips in at an AEW event, does a Ring of Honor taping, just some random tag match against her friend, and it barely got talked about. She did some indies out in California, a couple of indie matches out there. Then she does this Ring of Honor match. I mean, you imagine for the comparison you just made, and it's fair because they're both UFC people and they were both huge stars outside the WWE world. It'd be like if Brock Lesnar showed up and did a random tag match on an ROH event. Like it would be, everybody would be talking about it, but very few people even mentioned it. It wasn't a blip on the radar. And it's not like WWE scrambled to try to get her locked back into a contract. And Tony Khan didn't offer $20 million a year, to stay with AEW or even appear on AEW. Just did a little random Ring of Honor match. Meanwhile, he's over here paying. Nobody can say for sure. It's debated on how much money they're really paying Sasha Banks, but they're paying her more than she's worth in my estimation, regardless. And he clearly, I don't think, made a real attempt at getting Rousey because I'm sure he could have locked her into, some pay-per-view events or something. So, it is what it is, but yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Shane. She's selling books. It's just like Bischoff named his book "Controversy Creates Cash," and that's what she's trying to do. Is as sparks some interest. Is like, man, if this is the shit she's saying on the radio or podcast promoting this book, God only knows what she's saying between the pages. We need to check this out. So we're not saying go buy the book, but if you want to hear more from her, just stick around. And that's my thing too. Is there's a certain element of that of like, hey, let's read the book. But then again, she's saying so much crap in public. It's like, well, do you really need to buy the book? How much more's left? Unless she's one of the ones that Vince took a dump on her head or something, and that would really ruin her reputation if he let him get away with that. So surely not.
And I wanted to mention on that too. I don't know if what Rhonda's saying about Vince is true or not, but I feel like anyone now going forward that says anything, you get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to against Vince McMahon.
Oh, yeah, you can just throw anything out there now, and everybody's going to be like, yeah, probably. I mean, if he did that to that one girl, ain't no telling. Mm-hmm. So, let the floodgates open. Well, that's a whole other topic. We'll go there on another episode where we maybe dive a little deeper into accusations that come out well after the fact, be it wrestling and otherwise. So the only bit of AEW news that really caught my eye this week, other than those pictures of the dreadful turnout for Dynamite up there in Canada, or it looked like somebody had phoned in a bomb threat. And I guess Bischoff commented on it, and Tony Khan, they started going back and forth like they tend to do weekly, because nobody, whether it's Eric Bischoff or some random fan in, Oklahoma, is not going to tweet something negative about Tony Khan, and he's not going to personally address it, So apparently, Adam Copeland, Edge for the WWE fan who maybe doesn't keep up with AEW, he won the TNT title from his brother Christian Cage recently, and now he's got this Cope Open Challenge, which is like his version of the John Cena U.S. title Open Challenge, where he's going out and putting these open challenges out for the TNT title, which is cool. And apparently, this last night on Collision, Matt Cardona, the indie god, as he calls himself, answered the challenge, which is kind of interesting because, Adam Copeland, the former Edge, Matt Cardona, the former Zack Ryder, the previous to that, Brett Major of the Major Brothers, who were also the Edge heads, who were Edge's flunkies back in the day. And we hadn't really talked about this here, but man, Matt Cardona, who was Zack Ryder in WWE, who managed to achieve way more than was intended for him. I feel like, he got himself over with his internet show, his YouTube show, and his internet title and all that jazz. And then they kind of brought him back down to earth. And then he has managed to leave WWE and have a bigger career. I mean, according to him, if you believe what he says, and if you keep track of him, it seems to make sense. Matt Cardona says he made more money last year on the Indies than he did in his best year with the WWE, which is pretty impressive. But man, he's a hustler. He's at all these conventions. He does not scribble his name on an index card for less than $30. They're making all these figures and selling these figures, and he's all over the place, and he's reinvented himself. He's not like formerly Zack Ryder or changing the spelling of the name so he can get. I mean, he's already had a couple different incarnations: the Deathmatch King, the Indie God, and all this. And he dipped into AEW briefly, and then dipped back out. He's been in GCW, and I don't think him showing up last night is indicative that he signed anything or that he's really planning on sticking around. But he got a huge pop. I watched some footage of it. He got a huge pop, and a lot of people are talking about it. And, Shane, that boosts those indie bookings. His price, probably went up a little more, and he's a little more in demand than he was before Saturday night, and he was already pretty in demand. So, what's you guys' take on that quickly?
He's booked soon for a new era in Jasper, Alabama. Matt Cardona's coming in, and like you said, a guy we talked about last week with the Dark Side of the Ring. I kind of consider Matt Cardona, and you said it. This indie generation's Buff Bagwell will show up almost anywhere, hustling with the fans, moving in. But even Cardona, more to an extent now, like you said, with internet shows and custom made. I mean, how many guys are getting figures made outside of the top two companies on their own? That's pretty good deals. And yeah, I mean, does he still work some with NWA as well? Does Cardona still?
I think he does. Yeah, I think he drops in with NWA, and he's a regular with GCW and just all sorts of indies. He's Impact, TNA. He's popping in and out there. I heard he was at their most recent tapings. Who's his buddy Brian Myers is like tag champion there. He's contracted there. So he's all over the place.
To that statement that he made more money last year on the indies than he did with WWE, within recent time, that would be unfathomable, but now knowing what even like maybe a lower level guy's downside guarantee is, if you are out there 45 to 48 weekends or weeks a year out of 52 with merch, if you're getting that hotel and trans covered, man, with your guarantee, for a guy like Cardona, I believe it. I think he could make more on his own.
If he's getting what I've heard he's asking, because I've got a handful of friends that are indie promoters that have reached out and looked into booking him, and if he's getting what he's asking, I believe it, because he's staying booked up every weekend, and he's asking for some money. And then, like I say, I hear him talk about. I listen to their podcast semi regularly because I'm a bit of a collector of figures and such. And there's nights that he makes more than his payoff through merch, selling his own merch, selling those figures, because him and Brian Myers have started that action figure line where they're making figures of other wrestlers, old ECW guys, indie guys who don't have any, a big contract anywhere, and they're making money selling figures of other people. So yeah, he's definitely, I've seen him when they have these mass cuts. WWE puts out these mass cuts. He'll go on Twitter and be like, "Hey guys, this don't have to be the end. You get out there and hustle. This can be the beginning." And look at the guys who have left in the past. Probably Drew McIntyre being one of the greatest examples of left the WWE, went around the world for a couple of years and came back a bigger star than when he left, and he's still riding that wave now. Him and a few others. So, I think probably Cardona might have had a couple of opportunities to slip back in there, and probably was like, no, I think I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, because the minute he signs a WWE contract and perhaps an AEW contract, I don't know how strict they are, he starts losing his podcast. He's going to lose his action figure line. He's going to lose a lot of income streams. And so he's calling his own shots right now. So more power to him. I think it's pretty cool. So we're going to let Tyler lead this next discussion, because the first person, I've seen people saying this all week long, but the first person who was in Messenger saying, I think that's one of the best Raws they've done in years, is Tyler. So tell us a bit about your take on Monday night's Raw episode and what stands out that made you feel like that's the best episode of Raw you've seen in years.
Well, as you know, Raw sometimes is not exactly the highest bar anymore, but just it had a little bit of everything, and it felt like one of those old Attitude Era Raws by the end of it. But I mean, you start off the show with Cody, he's doing his thing to hype up the match and all of that, and points to the sign, getting the fans all into it, and I'm not expecting to hear The Rock's music hit on Monday Night Raw. Like, he's been showing up exclusively on SmackDown, so we start off already super hot. I mean, granted, Chicago normally does get better shows than most cities, so but Rock shows up, the crowd actually gave him a really big pop. I guess they probably weren't expecting that either. They come out, Rock and Cody are staring each other down and like saying nothing. Well, nothing that anyone can hear. All you see is Rock mouth something, then he leaves, and you're like, oh, well, wonder what that was. And then instantly you get on Twitter and you see everybody tweeting, what did he say? What did he say? People are reading lips and posting what he said, and most of them ended up being right with the whole. I think he said, "I'm going to make you bleed" or something like that. Then you go into what I thought was one of the best back and forth promo exchanges, had a little bit of everything that I've seen in a long time, and that's with Punk, Rollins, and McIntyre. That was absolute gold from, the second that Punk comes out, he's talking his thing. Drew McIntyre comes out. Punk talks about his skirt. Drew McIntyre says, it's 2024, you'll be canceled for saying something like that. Like, Drew McIntyre's, to me, he went from being like Sheamus level, where I couldn't give a shit about him if you give a shit about him. Like, he's legitimately like hilarious to me. I think he's done a great job on social media, getting people talking and posting those little things. He's always roasted Seth Rollins on there. It's pretty good if you haven't checked it out. But you come out there, Punk tries to bait him into saying Vince McMahon's name. all that stuff is like stuff that you normally would seem so off limits. Then Rollins' music hits. Punk falls to his knees. He takes the microphone and hits himself in the head 3 times. He comes out. They trade their little jabs and barbs, and by the end of it, I thought Punk threw out that really great line of, sure, I'll do commentary and I'll do something neither of you two have ever been able to do, and I'll actually make you both interesting. And I thought that was good. And he walks out, so that adds that level of intrigue. Although I really would have been intrigued by the special guest referee thing, but then again, at the same time, McIntyre literally ended this dude's WrestleMania run. Like, you can't almost believe he would be impartial to that. And then there was that. We had the Rhea and Becky was even really good. Rhea threw out her Becky's daughter's name, and Becky started. She was moved to tears. Felt real. Like she was legitimately like defending her daughter and being like, yeah, don't ever bring her up, even if it's just a promo type of deal. Then we get to the main event, where we have the match, all of that. And then we cut to backstage, Cody and Rock. Rock is beating the ever living hell out of Cody Rhodes. They go up, Look at that. I mean, that's something you don't see on normal Raw anymore in 2024. Like, we haven't seen something like that in a long time.
That's wrestling, baby.
Right. You have a lot of blood, and then I think also the whole fact that outside it was dark, it was raining. Like, I feel like the rain just added so much more to that. He's beating the hell out of him in the rain. And then they cut over to the, and I don't know. There might be substance to this. There might not. Some people really do believe that Stone Cold and John Cena are getting involved in the main event. So, in that case, that is a genius move by WWE to put that truck back there in the background as Rock is beating the hell out of him. Yeah, and I mean, it left you like, wow, that was a incredible episode, incredible ending, stuff we just don't see anymore. In the new age wrestling. So, yeah, I thought it had everything. I mean, I'm not saying it was the best Raw ever, but I think it was the best one we've had in a very, very long time as far as substance. And I mean, we could literally have dedicated an entire show podcast to this episode. I think it gave us that much.
Wes, what's your take?
I mean, it was kind of like something me and Shane were talking about yesterday. So, ever since that episode of Raw, I've heard people that don't talk about wrestling talking about WrestleMania. They're talking about WrestleMania. They're planning on going to different places. They're planning on having WrestleMania parties and actually watching WrestleMania. And it's people that don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, this is like I think this is something like 10 years down the road we're going to talk about. Like, hey, man, you remember that WrestleMania in Philly? You had Cody Rhodes, you had the Bloodline, The Rock, and could be John Cena, could be Stone Cold. I mean, I think we're about to see like Avengers Endgame to WrestleMania. And I think what it is, it's building due to an episode like Monday Nght Raw. That's how you get people invested. I mean, you got The Rock beating the brakes off Cody Rhodes, and the whole time it's showing Cody's weakness because he can't stand a chance. And piggybacking on what Tyler said, dude, the rain made it so much better. Just beating the brakes off of them. I mean, and even like after they go off air, they're still filming somewhere, and The Rock just still beats the brakes off of them and dropping F-bombs. And he loves the F-bomb. Absolutely loves the F-bomb.
Yeah. We'll
dropped
get to
a
that
couple
in a
of
minute.
those. He, just talks about Mama Rhodes. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I know we wanted, Rock and Roman. After Monday night, you can't tell me this is not the right direction. This is fantastic.
Shane?
Best Raw in recent memory. As Tyler alluded to, it wasn't just the closing segment. CM Punk's promo proved once again why he is one of the best on the mic, not only today, but also in recent memory down the years. Because think back 6 months ago, we didn't have The Rock and Punk in WWE. We now have two of the best on the mic still at the time in the company. And the Rhea and Becky bringing up being a mother and punching of Dom. And then, first of all, as Tyler said, we're unadvertised Rock showing up. What I thought was brilliant, the bait and switch, he comes out and just whispers in Cody's ear, whatever. He's shown talking to the interviewer, leaving. So you thought that was it. We thought The Rock was done for the night, which made it even better. A second surprise appearance from The Rock at the end. A couple of tidbits about it. I just wonder if they blew their wad early. The Rhea Becky, the Punk going to be commentator with McIntyre and Rollins' match, and then that closing visage of the blood. You still had a SmackDown. You still have a Raw. You still have a SmackDown to go. What I'm saying, if that Raw was the go home and WrestleMania was the next event from WWE you saw, I would have been fine with it. I don't know if they can live up to other than blowing Cody out of the water with dynamite going, because I don't think the baby faces need to get anything on the heels going into Mania. What are we watching Mania for? But as you two just alluded to, the rain beating him up outside, that looked something like a movie. The Crow, Sin City. It added to the allure of that. And I think I mentioned this to Gene earlier in the week. How many people was that their first time ever seeing blood, seeing the crimson mask, seeing color on weekly wrestling television? because I can't remember the last time it really happened on Raw. You'd have to go back to 2002, 2003, 2004. So at least 2 decades. And my last point about it, I doubt anyone from WWE listens to this very program. I hope you do. But last week when I said, man, can we get away from the LDS, little dick syndrome, and diarrhea Dwayne? Because in late January, early February, what had everybody blowing up was the personal real life issue. There was none of that. There was the beatdown. Yeah, there was profanity, but there was blood and there was Cody, not overselling, but with the pain and anguish of I've been busted open with blood coming down my face. And that got everybody buzzing again. Real life issues presented as real life issues, sales tickets.
That's what blew me away. Now, number one, I want to preface this for anybody listening. Nobody on your screen right now is delusional enough to think that anybody related to WWE heard this podcast last Sunday night. But we all sat here and agreed that, man, was pretty psyched about WrestleMania, but man, we're kind of straying off in left field. And Shane, you had specifically said, like, let's make this personal. Let's get some heat. Like, it's getting too goofy. We're getting too silly.
They blew me away by what they did.
And you couldn't have. You couldn't have just sat there like it's like if somebody had showed them that podcast or somebody relevant, somebody who has more cachet than we do. They're like, all right, they're right. We need to, in one Raw, we need to turn this thing around. And holy shit, just like Wes pointed out, it's like people who weren't invested, whether they were wrestling fans or not even wrestling fans, were all of a sudden like, holy crap, I got to see where we're going with this, I'm a huge CM Punk fan. Always have been. Back to seeing him in IWA Mid-South wrestling Chris Hero years ago. And that's not always been popular with people. But, man, he showed Monday night why he is a huge star and why Tony Khan's a freaking idiot for letting him go and over Jack Perry's dumb shit. But even in his position of being injured and not being able to wrestle, and even though Drew McIntyre is way more entertaining than he's ever been in his entire career, it would be hard to get me, and I know WrestleMania is not pointed at me, but I'm just saying, an average fan necessarily to be like, man, I'm really invested in Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. But by the time that was over with Monday night, that's one of the matches on the show I'm really looking forward to. And Punk's just so damn entertaining. And it's like, what was great was like Drew's holding his own. I mean, because in the past, you've seen him just eviscerate people to the point it's just like, God damn, let them up. They can't handle it. But like, he hands it out and Drew hands it back. And it was a good back and forth. Some of those lines, like, are you a skirt wearing internet troll? And then, like you said, the line about, you're going to get yourself canceled.
PG, brother.
Yeah, PG, brother. To me, my two favorite moments of that promo was the genuine look on McIntyre's face when Punk said, "Who chose you? Tell us. Say his name. Say his name." That look on that. I mean, you talking about a character completely melting away in that moment. He wanted to just bust out laughing, and he nearly did. My other favorite moment, it's subtle. Seth Rollins goes, "You want to know what I think?" Punk goes, "Nope." It's such a simple thing, but over the years, like how many times in promos have people, "You want to know what I think?" "Yeah, what do you think?" And then they go on another big tear. But it's like it just completely just let the air out of Rollins. Like, "You want to know what I think?" "Nope." "Well, I'm going to tell you anyway." But that whole segment made me excited about that match. I'm actually excited. If I wasn't going to watch WrestleMania, if none of this other stuff was setting up, I'd be like, well, I just got to hear what Punk's going to say on commentary and how this plays out after the match. So that was great. So Cody in the ring doing the promo. This promo was a little better than the one last week. I liked the delivery a little better. There's still something about his delivery that still just doesn't always sit well with me. But The Rock coming out and whispering and leaving gave me like Sting from 96 vibes. And a lot of people who weren't around then can't appreciate, and I know you were, Shane, like I remember as a fan, every week you were waiting for a year and a half. What Sting? Because Sting would grab them and he'd whisper in their ear and he'd give them the DDT, or he'd get in their face or he'd turn his back on them. And for a year and a half, you're like, what is Sting gonna say? What's he whispering to these people? What's his deal? Where's this going? Now, unfortunately, after a year and a half, his first promo was terrible and it didn't really build anything. But that, there was less is more type thing, that suspense week in and week out. And I'm kind of like you kind of alluded to, Shane. Yes, that was a great payoff at the end of Raw and it got everybody talking, and I'm not knocking that. But if you had had a week to marinate on what did The Rock say, what did he say, where's this going, what's going to happen, it would have really gave you something to pay off this Monday night. And they may have something bigger and better. We may be like, next time we're doing the podcast, we'll be like, oh, well, they had it figured out. They had something great in mind. But I do feel like that's something you could have drug on a little longer. But I said this to you guys, I think in group chats or maybe separately. I don't know. But my big thought after watching that segment with The Rock is, for the past so many years, movie star Dwayne Johnson has dropped in WWE. The star of the Young Rock has dropped in at WWE, and he's had his fun, and he's rock bottomed people, and he's made appearances. But starting at, what do they call it, the kickoff? Can't really call it a press conference. There wasn't any press there. But starting there and then building up to last Monday night, that's the first time we've seen The Rock, the character, the heel. No sign of Dwayne, happy-go-lucky potential politician. He may be running for president bullshit. Like, he was fully invested being a flat-out heel. And I think I said this to Tyler maybe in a message, but it's like, that guy in that segment that ended Raw the other night was a perfect villain. He was a final boss. That didn't have to be Monday Night Raw. That could have been any great action movie, any great dramatic movie. He was playing a heel, a villain, a guy that you wanted to see the babyface overcome. And in the era that started with Stone Cold Steve Austin, where you had to be a badass and you had to overcome everybody week in and week out, when have you really had a completely vulnerable babyface like that to go out and just take an ass whipping and bleed, not make any kind of a comeback? And I have said for years, being a fan of old school wrestling, that's something that was missing for 20-something years that Austin ruined. I said for years, I was like, dude, Steve Austin has ruined babyfaces because babyfaces got over on sympathy. Now, you paid it off with the revenge, with the comeback, but there was never a comeback with Steve Austin because he left everybody laying week in and week out. He had to look strong. I'm Stone Cold, by God. You never felt sorry for Steve Austin. You never got sympathy. He still was over, but you just had to change the way you told stories with him. And, Cena in moments.
I want to cut in. I want to cut in on that, Gene, real quick. The one time that there was sympathy for Steve Austin is when he turned babyface, passing out without submitting to Bret Hart's sharpshooter. That moment turned him babyface with the blood, with the selling, and continue. I'm sorry.
No,
it just hit me when you said that.
You're exactly
He
right.
never did that again. He never did that again.
That's how you officially made the turn from heel to babyface, was that moment where he was vulnerable and they stopped the match. Because then later he gets dropped on his neck. He's actually laying in the ring paralyzed, and we're still trying to figure out a way for him to roll him up and win the match. And we're trying to downplay it. This guy's sitting here nearly a cripple, and we're trying to downplay that. We don't want to admit that he's not Superman. But Cody, just like Wes said, he just took an ass whooping. He bled and just got the shit beat. I mean, it went on for an uncomfortably long time. Maybe I'm getting old now. I'm getting in my late 40s. I don't think we need the F-bombs. I mean, you guys hear me on stage. It's not like in my everyday life I'm just offended by any kind of profanity. But it's like, do we need that? Like, really?
Fuck.
I don't think we do.
It doesn't add anything to
you start. It doesn't add anything. You're starting to limit your audience. I got a feeling when we get to Netflix, this is going to be a new era of WWE that may,
Well, when you
it
said
may help,
less
it
is
may hurt. I
more, if Rock had dropped one F bomb during this program, holy cow! I think we're in double digits now in the last 2.5 weeks combined. So
don't know. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And if we just saved it,
watch
he
out.
had his person there filming it. So we got this cheesy video that's making the rounds of after we yelled cut, he continued to beat on Cody, and then he dropped a couple more F bombs. It's like, well, if you just saved the fucks until he thought he was off the air and we weren't recording anymore, and now it's just the real guy beating up the other real guy, then the F bombs would have felt a little more important too if you dropped them off the air for the first time. But like you said, he's been dropping them on Raw and SmackDown and Instagram and Twitter and everywhere. So it's not really it's nothing special at this point. He's kind of went to that well too many times. But I mean, that's nitpicking. Here's my big nitpick. This is me being the devil's advocate because we can't all just jerk off all over this thing. Somebody's got to be negative somewhere. It might as well be me. My only issue in all this is, at the end of all this, we're building towards a one-on-one title match with Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Now, when Roman clearly had, suckered Cody into SmackDown for an ambush, but Cody was prepared, and we had the big 3-on-3 standoff at the end of SmackDown last week, and that was all great. But it kind of kept things on an even keel, and there's no sympathy for Cody, and there's no advantage to Roman. And like I said, it was kind of even. We put all the heat on The Rock. I mean, The Rock has Roman Reigns has no heat going into WrestleMania. He's The Rock's partner. I don't know if this is by design. I don't know if this is the story they're wanting to tell. But the way this is all played out, Roman has no heat. He's the champ, but he's The Rock's fucking sidekick at this point. And his story is going to end on Friday night to some degree. I mean, maybe he's going to be a huge factor in how the title match plays out. I don't know. But still, we got to sell a singles match. And as Wes pointed out, we're all invested in the Cody versus Rock story. Freaking Roman and Seth's just going to be in the way on night one. And then night two is like, all right, well, now we got to watch him wrestle Roman. And there's really no heat there other than just the fact that Roman beat him last year with a bunch of interference and horse shit. How do we feel about that, or does it even matter?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I felt like that about Roman. Like, I mean, you know me, I'm a huge Roman fan. But Roman, I hate to say it, but since Rock has showed up, he started to feel less and less important. In the grand scheme of things, we are pretty confident Cody's probably going to beat him night two, but yeah, I mean, why isn't Roman doing some of these like terrible heel things to Cody? Like it's just like Roman's just chilling at home while Rock just shows up and is just beating the ever living crap out of the guy, and like Roman really hasn't done anything. And SmackDown didn't even touch on that anything from that storyline on Friday night. I mean, it was a pretty weak episode of SmackDown. Raw definitely stole the show this week, which is normally rare. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I kind of feel the same way. And it kind of, I know there's a lot of theories out there of oh, what if Roman does win? But all of this, Roman taking it back to just kind of is making me more confident that Cody is going to leave WrestleMania as a champ. I mean, which, we all kind of see coming. But there are people out there like, oh, what if Seth turns on Cody? Or what if this happens? Or what if that happens? But yeah, I mean, it seems like Roman's kind of getting phased out, whether intentionally or not intentionally, I guess remains to be seen. But yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out where that leaves him after. If Cody wins, now we've got Cody and The Rock, I guess, for SummerSlam. Like you can take what they're building here and do something with it.
mm-hmm.
If Roman keeps the belt, Rock's got more heat than him. So does he end up turning babyface? But then you're just setting it. I mean, I don't know. I guess trying to figure out the other side of this, you should just sit back and enjoy it and shut up or whatever. But I'm just saying, if we're going to do a podcast about it, you might as well try to analyze it a little bit. And looking at what they're giving us, it's like if you didn't know any better, if you were just like somebody who was sitting down, you don't really know much about wrestling, or maybe you used to watch wrestling and you're just dipping in because The Rock's there, Roman comes off like the fucking outsider, like the part-time guy who's dropping in from Hollywood, who's not really that invested. Rock seems like the full-time heel. I'm here for the angle, and Roman's just kind of like, yeah, I'll be there to wrestle him, whatever, you know. Get them, guys. I don't care. Like, I don't know. Like, it's got to be by design. There's got to be an intention behind all this. So I'm very curious to see where it goes.
I'm thinking they're actually trying to build like the Roman and Rock in the future. So like you got the Rock coming in, he's taking over, he's the final boss, he's doing all this shit. I think they're doing that, kind of doing like storytelling between Rock and Roman. You know, Rock comes in, he basically is taking over, and eventually it wouldn't surprise me if Cody finishes the story and you have Rock and Roman, you know, going at it.
I think what we get
you don't need the title there necessarily.
I think what we get is Cody and Rock at SummerSlam. You know, we build towards that, and I think next year's WrestleMania, we continue to build that. We get Roman versus Rock, and then that's finally it. Rock probably leaves after that. That's just my prediction for like as they build. I don't know now how they do that. I don't know, but that's just what I think we're going to end up with as we go, because we almost have to have Cody versus Rock at this point, just one-on-one.
Yeah, because why are you heating the Rock up, putting this much heat between the Rock and Cody just to have him drop a tag match on Saturday night, and then the real match and then the real feud going forward to be between Cody and Roman? Like, I assumed going into this, Rock's here for WrestleMania and then he's out, but they're putting so much heat on Rock now, you really can't play that out in the tag match on Saturday night. Like, there's going to have to be more between Cody and The Rock. But I think the one thing logically this should stamp this out, but being WWE, they've done things that were less logical in the past. But there's been this theory online amongst people and even a couple of friends of mine that in the end, Rock was going to be, this was going to be a big ruse where Rock was working with Cody to offset things and then help him win the title. But at this point, you've made this so personal. There's no way that we're going down that road. And thank God, because that would have been corny. It would have took away from Cody's victory. It would have cheapened everything.
It would have been.
But then again, they've done things that stupid in the past where in the end you're like, no, but I hope if nothing else, everything they've done the last couple of weeks guarantees there's no way that that's where this is going. Let's check the comments here real quick. Our buddy Ray Russell from WrestleCopia says, how do you guys feel about the Battle Royal being on SmackDown even after Vince's departure? There's clearly plenty of time on the pay-per-view. Seems like a way to not give out paydays. Kind of crappy for talent like Andrade, Ricochet, Bronson Reed, Nakamura, and Chad Gable. Which that's an interesting question, because used to, you had the Battle Royal just for it was one day. There's only so many people you could fit on the card. There's only so many room for so many matches, but that's not necessarily the case now. And that's some, a couple of heavy hitters, at least 2 or 3 at least in that lineup there that probably should have a more of a featured match at WrestleMania.
Yeah, be careful how you talk about Chad Gable. You'll piss some people off about that if you lump him in with the city wrestlers. People were not facing Gunther.
I want to touch on the closing of that, because I think I said 3 weeks ago that Roman Reigns, when the Rock around, is solo Sequoia in equivalency, and it has continued to do that even more so. Now, as you said, Gene, if you were just fresh to this, you would think Roman Reigns was the movie star, the part-timer, and Dwayne Johnson is full-time with WWE. Whether that is intentional or not, I don't know, but perception could be reality. One thing that may come out of this, I wonder if there's going to be a little bit of friction where Reigns tells Rock, why did you do that? I didn't authorize you to do that. I don't show up on Raw. Why did you? Even if they want to do just a little bit like, hey, you didn't do that with my thing. Rock's like, well, I'm the final boss. I'm ensuring that he's not winning. You could twist it on something like that. But if you take away that Dwayne Johnson is a movie star and a household name, you know what this is to me? This is Arn Anderson showing up more and beating up Dusty Rhodes than Ric Flair, the champion, doing the deed. And that would come off weird. Even as top tiers the Horsemen were, it should be the main guy with the belt that has because Arn Anderson wasn't wrestling Dusty for the NWA title. The Rock isn't wrestling Cody for the WWE belt. So it does come off a little, I don't know. But yeah, this program, whether by design or not, has transitioned to The Rock and Cody. I don't know if people really want Roman and Cody that bad next Sunday. Based on what you've given us, you want to see The Rock and Cody Rhodes one-on-one.
Their whole gripe, at least storyline wise, in the beginning was everybody wanted The Rock and Roman, and then Cody screwed that up. And so then they gave him Cody and Roman because he won the Royal Rumble. But now you've made it to where they don't even really want Cody and Roman. They want The Rock and Cody. And so in either scenario, Roman's the one, with his dick in his hand on the sidelines. That's just like, okay, I'm the tribal chief. Nobody gives a shit about
And
me.
And to our question, the Battle Royal, it used to would be on WrestleMania. Then it was on the pre-show. If you have to lower it to SmackDown, just don't do it, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, pretty soon it's going to be on the dark. It's going to be the dark match of SmackDown. Like, it's not even going to be. Here's what happened before we went on the air. Chad Gable won. Yay. Whoop-de-doo.
He threw out Matt Cardona.
Yeah, Matt Cardona showed up unannounced. Call him Zack Ryder, but he ain't having it.
Mm-hmm.
He wore the wrong gear. All right, so I think we thoroughly discussed Raw. Like you said, SmackDown was lackluster, other than Jade Cargill made her TV debut on there, and they all pointed together at the sign, and whatever that's going to mean exactly. So yeah, that was pretty much it for SmackDown. So here's what we're going to do. We're not going to talk about every match on WrestleMania because, quite frankly, I don't know what every match on WrestleMania is, but we're going to hit the high spots here. I don't necessarily want to delve in real deep on everybody's thoughts, really analyzing the match too much, but just kind of. So what we're going to do is
it's March Madness selections, baby.
Yeah, basically, because we're not going to do a podcast next Sunday night because we'd have to wait until WrestleMania was over with.
It could be an ungodly time too.
Yeah, no telling when it could be, even though there's 2 nights of it. The second night usually runs a little long, and so then we thought, well, Monday night, the Monday night after the Raw after WrestleMania. So we're going to do next Sunday night. There's not going to be a podcast. We're going to do it on Tuesday night at 9:30, and we're going to talk about WrestleMania both nights. We'll talk about the Monday night afterwards. If anything wild comes out of that. And so right now, everybody's going to kind of commit to who they think is going to win the match, going down the card, at least the big matches, and then we can circle back around on Tuesday and see who was right and who was wrong. And so here we go, WrestleMania 40. I don't have these in any real particular order because I don't know which. I mean, we know a couple matches of what nights they're going to be on, but I'm just kind of putting them in order of importance, perception-wise. So obviously, we start here. LA Knight and AJ Styles. We'll start with Wes and work our way to Wes, Shane, Tyler, me, and then we'll circle to the next match. That way, nobody's just sitting here looking at each other, waiting for somebody to start. So, Wes, who do you pick?
I'm gonna go AJ Styles.
I'm going to go AJ Styles as well. I think.
Are we going? Who do we want to win, or who do we think they're going to put?
Who I think that's going to win is definitely AJ Styles. I mean, I don't think it's who I want, especially in this match. I think it can go either way, but I mean, I think it's going to be AJ that wins it.
Okay, Shane said
LA Knight needs it, but I think AJ Styles wins it because I don't think it's the end of the program.
Tyler?
I'm the contrarian, going LA Knight. I think it's his first WrestleMania match. I think he's still wildly over with the crowd. So, yeah, LA Knight's my pick.
I'm kind of with Tyler. Like, I get where Wes and Shane are coming from, but they've kind of been like in and out on LA Knight. Like, they're kind of invested in him, and then they're pulling back. I think if you want me to believe that LA Knight has a future in WWE as a mega star, as he calls himself, he needs to win at WrestleMania. So even if it ain't the end of the program, I'm going to say LA Knight wins. As much as it pains me because I fucking hate LA Knight, but that's another story. Next.
Yeah.
Riho Sky against Bailey for the women's title. One of them. Wes?
100% Bailey. 100%.
Shane?
Bailey. I mean, I don't think you had that performance in the Royal Rumble for her to go under at Mania.
Bailey gets her moment.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't think there's even any discussion there, or at least there shouldn't be. Oh, let me back up here. Our buddy J Dubs is in the comments. He picked LA Knight. He picked Bailey. So we'll bring along his picks as well, and anyone else who wants to include theirs in here. So, all right. So it's unanimous that Bailey should win the title, which means she probably won't. All right. Intercontinental title. Sami Zayn versus Gunther, if you will. This is a big one because this is the historic longest reign of any Intercontinental Champion history. Wes, who do you think takes it?
Only because I think you got to push him further than the Intercontinental title. I think Sami Zayn wins at this Mania, so that pushes Gunther in the future for the bigger title. So I'm thinking Sami.
I got 3 different scenarios here. Either Sami Zayn wins and they elevate him into a true main event contender. 2, the honky tonk man comes out to assist Sami Zayn because he's got a problem with that longest reigning Intercontinental Champion. He helps him win. Or 3, I think Gunther retains. That's what I'm going to pick. But if Gunther loses, I think it's only because he becomes Cody's first challenger based on the previous 2 Royal Rumbles. But I think Gunther wins.
Tyler?
I don't think they're. I agree with Shane's last point about Gunther being a logical next choice. I don't think they're. I think we're going Cody, Rock, Roman some way or fashion within the next year, going on the next WrestleMania. So I'm going to say Gunther retains. I don't think Sami. I feel like Sami's team has really died off from what it once was. I mean, he had fans mad that he won the number 1 contender spot. So yeah, he just doesn't seem like the logical guy to end that right now.
This is probably more wishful thinking than logical thinking. I'm going to say Sami just because I want that to happen, and just because they had such a great build to Montreal, and he had to come up short for storyline purposes, and somebody's got to beat Gunther, and if it's not Sami, who will it mean more for besides him? And it's WrestleMania, and if you want Gunther to move on, as pointed out, he's got to drop the title, and I think Sami Zayn's as good a person to drop it to as anybody. But that remains to be seen. J-Dub says Sami for the upset. Let's hope so. Circling back to the Bailey match, Ray says a giant Bailey buddy will fall over on Sky and help Bailey win. Return of the Bailey buddies. Well, that would definitely be a fun scenario. That, of course, being the big, wacky, inflatable 2 people that used to be in the aisle. So they have been sorely missed. Ray says, I feel like Gunther holds that belt till he fights for the main title. I think any clean loss to Gunther hurts his main event momentum. And that's true, too. And that may be why it may be an Ultimate Warrior thing or something, where he holds it until he does win a main title, and then he drops the IC belt and they go have a tournament for it or something. So that's quite likely. All right, so next, we're just going to go ahead and jump to the main event of night 1. Roman Reigns and The Rock versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. I know we've kind of talked about this at length in the weeks leading up, but did Monday night make you feel any different? What do you think, Wes?
I'm still going Rock and Roman. I mean, I think if you really want to have a huge match and have anything go, you want Rock and Roman to win. Night 2, you got the Bloodline rules, and it's basically like a no holds bar. Anything goes. Anybody can show up. And
what?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that could happen. So I think Rock and Roman definitely win night 1. And that's going to put the interest in the heads of people going, well, Cody lost night one. Is he going to lose night two? And,
Okay?
I think for all those reasons, I'm going with the switcheroony. I think that if the heels win, that it looks like, oh, it's bloodline rules. Cody's going to have to overcome extra adversity to finish his story. What if you put Cody and Seth over? And oh my gosh, we're going to get Roman and Cody one-on-one, except we don't. The Rock and the Bloodline still interfere because he's the final boss. F it, F this, F that. Now the heat's through the roof. It's like, no, wait a minute. These guys won the tag. You aren't playing fair. So if we are to believe that a John Cena, a Steve Austin, a Hulk Hogan, or Sylvester Stallone is going to get involved, now they have reason to do so because the baby faces are getting royally screwed.
I am going to go Rock and Roman for that win. I don't foresee Roman Reigns has main evented the last 4 or 5 WrestleManias. I don't see him getting swept. I don't see him losing both main events or being on the losing side of both main events because we'll get to it. I don't want to talk about it. I'm enjoying.
Yeah, I mean we've talked about it at length and we'll continue to. Yeah, it's all a strategy game of people sitting there and figuring out, well, if this happens on night one, then that dictates night two. And so obviously a lot of what they're doing is going to be trying to, as Shane said, kind of mislead everybody in one direction or the other. So I don't know. I could see it going either way, but I mean, if the heels went on Friday night, then you think logically, well, then Cody's going to win on Sunday night, Friday, whatever, fucking night, so night two, however that goes. But again, then you're just playing strategy, really. Who knows what the hell they're going to do? We'll go over here to J-Dub says Cody and Seth go over because it will cost up the Cody and Roman match. Ray says the heel is winning one night, a face the other, assuming the Cody story concludes night two. The heel's over on night one. Rock ain't jobbing, and you're not jobbing Roman night one and night two. I mean, that's fair. The other thing.
Let me ask you guys this. Sorry, I wanted to ask you guys real quick. Do you think we just get a straight tag match with those 4? Is there a turn from Rollins? Is there a return from Dustin Rhodes? Or is it just those 4 guys and it decides the night one?
Okay, here's the wrinkle in all this Rollins turns nonsense. If Rollins turns, he don't do it until night 2 because then you fuck up the Drew McIntyre CM Punk dynamic because McIntyre is firmly a heel in that scenario. CM Punk is firmly a babyface. If you turn Rollins on night 1, that kind of screws up the dynamic of night 2's world title match. And if Rollins does turn on Cody, what do you do with that? We've already had a shit pile of Cody and Seth matches already. Does that mean you're putting Rollins back with Roman? Are we going to be the Tribal Shield? I mean, I don't see that being the scenario. I know a lot of people like throwing that out, and I think they like teasing that. But surely to God, that's not how we go. Plus, they really can't afford to cost themselves a babyface right now. Not that they love singing Seth's song. I mean, granted, he's kind of an odd babyface, but god dang it, they love that theme music. So I don't think that's going to be the case. But here's the thing: whether this is going to play out to Cody wins and he's the champion to potentially defend against The Rock, Roman somehow retains through massive interference or lightning strikes Cody or whatever. If you beat The Rock on Friday night or on Saturday night on night 1, does that take away from him challenging either guy who comes out the champion on night 2? So they almost need to win number 1 to protect The Rock for future matches with either guy. And I think you need, as Wes pointed out, you need those insurmountable odds on Saturday night because everybody's gonna be like, God dang it, they're gonna do it. They're gonna screw Cody again. There's no way Cody's gonna win, and then If he does, great. And if he doesn't, then they've got a million excuses why, and you can stretch this out for another freaking year, I guess, if you need to. Something that came out this week, and it's weird that they would put this in the news because you can read this two different ways. It's been announced this week by Cody himself that he has re-signed with WWE for a few years. Now, you can look at that as, okay, did he re-sign because he knows he's finishing the story and he's going to win the title? Or does that mean, hey, we got a few more years to tell this damn story, so we ain't got to let him win this year because he's going to be here till 2027. We can do 4 more WrestleManias out of the old story. You could take that however you want to. That could go either way. So
They better not do the Luger 93 SummerSlam where Cody beats Reigns by countout. And we have all the baby faces hold him up with confetti and balloons, and he didn't really win the title.
God help us. Anyway, moving on. We can talk about that all night long. So I guess officially my answer is Rock and Reigns. So just to recap, Wes, you said the heels. Shane said the baby faces. Tyler said the heels, and I said so. Shane's the lone chooser of the baby faces, correct?
I'm taking the baby faces with the heels, still doing bloodline rules just to fuck them.
True, and that's quite possible. So moving to night 2, United States title, 3-way, KO, RKO, and Logan Paul. Wes?
I think between Kevin Owens and Randy, they're going to go heel during that match. I think whoever does that wins. But then again, I could see it to where, like, let's say Randy turns heel or whatever, that Logan ends up winning it still. I think I'm gonna go with Logan.
Shane?
I'm going with Logan for one reason. There is no product by Randy Orton or Kevin Owens that's going to be endorsed on the canvas of WrestleMania. Prime Energy, Logan Paul retains.
Tyler?
Logan. I think Logan retains. Just seems logical to me for my own reasons.
He put over Seth last year. I mean, I can see the scenario that Wes laid out perfectly. Either KO screws Randy, Randy screws KO, Logan benefits from it, and they go on to a feud, and Logan gets by with the skin of his teeth with the U.S. title. I love the meme that's floating around of Austin on top of a Prime. They took the beer truck and turned it into a Prime truck. He's out there spraying people down with it. We're probably not far from seeing that happening. So let's see here. Ray says Logan coming to Cleveland for SummerSlam. Doesn't necessarily need the belt for his hometown, but I think it makes whatever he does bigger. Orton doesn't need a number 2 belt. Exactly. Orton's not leaving with the U.S. title, and at this point, Owens has had it in the past. It does more for Logan Paul than it does for either one of those guys. So, and like you said, Logan's going to play a key factor in SummerSlam being in Cleveland. So that's a very good point. No comment from J-Dubs. We're going to assume that he's going with the majority and picking Logan Paul because we all are. All right, women's title: Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch. It's a tough one. Or is it?
I'm going mommy.
Rhea Ripley is a star. She's not a star in the women's division. She's a star, and she's bankable. And I think Becky Lynch will bring a good match to Rhea Ripley, probably on par with what we saw close to Charlotte and Rhea last year. But Ripley retains.
Yeah, I said last week. I think Rhea is the 3rd biggest star in the company after Cody. So, well, and The Rock if you count him too. But yeah, I think Rhea keeps the title. Becky's had her moments and all of that, but yeah, Rhea's just on another level right now.
So I'm going to say Rhea retains. Cody loses on Sunday night. He comes out on Raw and says, "You know what? You know what else? You know what other title Dusty Rhodes never won? He never won the belt. So Rhea, I'm coming for you next WrestleMania. I'm starting a new story." and lays down the challenge.
Wins the Women's Royal Rumble.
But no, Ripley for sure. If they do anything besides Ripley winning, it's a major misstep in her career as far as I'm concerned. Ray says they've done nothing opponent-wise, story-wise for Rhea for her entire run. Ripley wins here to finally be the quality player on paper. I mean, they really haven't had anybody on her level, I mean, other than Charlotte, really to have a story with. So, Mr. Duncan says, Rhea, Becky seems to have fizzled out a bit, in my opinion. I agree 100%. Long time ago. All right, so, brother versus brother for the first time in WrestleMania history. Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso.
I'm going Jimmy Uso.
Okay.
I'm going Jimmy.
Okay.
I think it's something because you got main event Jay. You think it's going to be Jay. It's going to be, I think there might be some bloodline shit. I think Jimmy wins.
Shane?
I'm going with Uso.
Damn it.
Give me Jay on this.
Shane's like, make sure you quote me on that in the podcast.
I'll go Jay.
All right.
Yeah, this one seems obvious. Jay wins. I could see a scenario where like this goes on before the Cody and Roman, assuming Rock and Roman win night one. It's bloodline rules. You have the bloodline interference. You're like, see, like even Jay can't even beat Jimmy because of these bastards, and you know they have that. But at the end of the day, that might be trying to overthink it a little too much. I think Jay has been built as the bigger star than Jimmy. He's gotten the title shots. He has his own kind of thing. Jimmy's still kind of like Roman's cousin and kind of in a shadow. Kind of seems like the lowest guy in the bloodline, in my opinion. So I'm going to go Jay.
I agree with everything you just said there. And for that reason, this is going to be a one-time opportunity to really level up Jimmy because Jay has been getting all the shine and all this. I think maybe they take the opportunity to give Jimmy a big win because it's not going to hurt Jay. It can only help Jimmy. But I just hope there's not a bunch of bullshit bloodline shenanigans involved. And for the love of God, I hope there's no swerve where Jay goes back to the bloodline. If anything, Jimmy needs to turn face if they're going to be back together. But I think the bloodline's on its way out, so surely we don't go that route. But I've heard many people saying that. Yeet yawn. This is no Brett versus Owen. True. Jay wins if they want to salvage his lost heat. We'll see. So we got two and two on this one, or no? Or me and Wes both said Jimmy. Y'all both said Jay, right? So we'll see who comes out on top of that. All right, two more matches. This one's interesting. Seth freaking Rollins versus Drew McIntyre for the world title.
I mean, if it's fair for me, I think if they're about to push a babyface to win one title, I think you got to give a title to a heel. I can see Drew doing it. That's just me. I think it's going to be Drew that wins it. I'm going with Drew.
This one has a lot of different avenues. Seth Rollins with the torn meniscus, if you're led to believe that he's going to take time off after Mania to get through these two matches when the company really needs him, then McIntyre wins. Another thing would be, Drew is doing some of the best work of his career as a heel. And like Wes said, if you're going to change or not one belt to a babyface, then the heel wins the other one. But then I think, is the money in Punk versus Rollins, Punk versus McIntyre, is it a triple threat? I think maybe a little bit more at this point with Punk and McIntyre. So would Punk inadvertently say something, do something to help Seth retain, which gets a McIntyre and Punk? Maybe I'm just forecasting too much. You just wanted to pick. I'm going to take McIntyre some way, somehow here, but the CM Punk dynamic being involved leads me to believe Rollins may retain. We transition to a McIntyre Punk feud near SummerSlam when he's ready to come back.
Tyler?
I am going to go McIntyre on this. I think McIntyre is doing good work. I think depending on how long Punk is out, I think you can go right into a Punk versus McIntyre revenge feud. Maybe carry that to like a SummerSlam. Maybe Punk beats him there. Maybe then you build that Punk. To me, Punk versus Rollins is what we were supposed to get this year. I think we all know that. So I think you can build that towards next year's WrestleMania. I mean, I think just with the rumored personal issues they've had. Just they're both great in-ring workers. I think it would be more of like a WrestleMania caliber match over like McIntyre versus Punk. But I do think McIntyre could have a fun reign. He's doing some excellent work right now, and I think also you kind of give him his real WrestleMania moment where he's not winning the title in the damn Performance Center in front of virtual video boards and stuff. So yeah.
I mean, he's beat that freaking drum for how long now of I won the title, but it didn't mean shit because nobody was there type thing. But he's also a heel now, so do we really want to see him accomplish that? So, you could take that away from him just because he's the bad guy. Now, if you want to step completely outside of the storyline avenues here of the potential of Drew and Punk, Seth Drew Punk, triangle match, all that shit. There's all this will he, won't he contract issues with Drew, and supposedly he hadn't re-signed up until recently, and all this. Maybe that's how they got him to stay. Is we'll put the title on your WrestleMania. We'll build to you and Punk at SummerSlam. Maybe Seth's in the mix, maybe he's not. But for all those reasons, I think McIntyre takes the belt at WrestleMania. They may swap it back and forth a couple times between now and SummerSlam. Who knows? But I think if for no other reason to give him his world title win in front of an audience, to shut up about that, and the potential for the feud with Punk. Now,
and one thing to touch on, we're talking about title matches. Not just Roman. None of these belts have changed hands in a long time. Rollins has been the only world champion. Gunther, the longest reigning IC. Rhea for a year since Charlotte. Reigns for 3 years. So some of these title changes, if not at Mania, but when they do happen, they're going to mean something, Tony Khan.
I agree with that. And I think we needed to get some longer title reigns. But then again, now all of a sudden, now that everybody's title reign's long, now the other title reign, you know what I mean? Like if one title reign's long, that stands out. But if all the title reigns are long,
yeah, they all shouldn't have happened at the same time.
That goes the other way. So Ray says, "I'm over whatever Seth's gimmicks is." Amen. They give the title to Drew so Punk can take it at SummerSlam. I think that's probably spot on. And Lord knows I'm with him. I don't know what Seth Rollins' gimmick is supposed to be, but it's not a babyface. But anyway. And okay, this is anticlimactic as hell. We've already kind of overanalyzed this as we went along, and we've all kind of touched on it in the tag match. And clearly, whatever any of us say is just purely speculation because who knows what the hell they're really going to do. But if we got to commit to something, Wes,
I mean, I've got adrenaline in my soul, so I'm going Cody Rhodes, baby. It's Cody. Cody.
He's finally going to finish the story.
The story's going to be finished.
Unless he doesn't. Then
yeah, I could be wrong. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
One for Cody. Shane?
Conspicuous by his absence since he laid down that promo on SmackDown about who the real authority is has been Triple H. Have you noticed that? He was at the beginning of the forefront of this stuff. He hasn't been seen. So I think at some point during this, The Rock tries to intervene, exert power. Triple H is out. We know Triple H can't do a match. Rock something to the effect, what are you going to do, beat my ass in a match or beat me up? I can't, but I have someone who can. If you insert Cena, Dustin Rhodes, Austin here, whatever, that's the big deal, the power struggle between those two going forward. Cody wins. End of story. Some way, somehow, Cody Rhodes better walk out, or it is the Luger 93 SummerSlam thing, because I don't want to see Cody Rhodes built up again. What more can you do?
Amen. Tyler?
Let me preface this with, I hope I'm wrong, but
I already know what you're going to say now.
I will gladly come on this podcast Tuesday night if I'm wrong. Yeah, I'll probably be holding up the ones and everything. But it's probably Cody. I mean, you changed direction due to social media backlash. Whatever you got. Are you really going to try and piss the Cody crybabies off again? I don't think you're going to do it. I don't think they're going to be patient. They want to finish the story now. And now is probably the best time to do it. And Roman continuing to kind of take the back seat to The Rock in this whole deal and kind of becoming forgotten because Roman was on that god tier of nobody can touch him. Now he kind of looks like a sidekick. I mean, it just feels like the decline is happening right in front of us, and seems pretty obvious. Cody's gonna leave night 2, but I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it has to be Cody or else, because if nobody wants to hear another year of finish the story. I don't ever want to hear those 3 words said in a sentence together again after WrestleMania is over with, regardless of the outcome. But and yeah, I mean, if you splinter off into Rock versus Roman, however that plays out for a while, to get us to next WrestleMania or SummerSlam or whatever, everybody may really be on to something where Gunther retains. He steps up as Cody's first big challenger because, in the past, I always go back to Great American Bash 1990. We were all so excited to see Sting beat Ric Flair for the world title. And then come to find out, they had no freaking heels built up ready to take on Sting, and his title match fizzled out like a fart in church because it had nowhere to go. And eventually, after the horrible Black Scorpion angle, we had to go back to Flair. So I hope they've got a plan on when Cody does win the title and finish the story, some strong stories to go from there. Ray says Shane may be on to something. Cody by count out with balloons. I hope they learned their lesson from that. I mean, has there ever been a bigger letdown in the world than that was? But either way, I'm excited about it because in the past, we all could have sat here and said pretty definitively on 90% of these matches how they were going to go. And genuinely, none of us really know. I mean, we all gave our best guess or who we hoped was going to win. But that's been the fun.
And they'll surprise us.
That has been the real fun of a Vinceless WWE with Triple H's input and everything. Is there's been a lot of surprises, and this whole twisting and turning story of The Rock and Roman and Cody and Seth and whomever else gets lumped in has been ever changing. But again, depending on what happens tomorrow night, just by the ass whooping that Cody took unanswered last week, kind of tells you surely he's going to win at WrestleMania. You're not going to whip his ass on Raw and leave him bleeding in the rain just to beat him on 2 nights of WrestleMania. But, who's to say? I feel like, true to Dusty Rhodes' form, Cody wins the title at WrestleMania and he has a short reign. I don't think Cody Rhodes is going to be long for the world title.
I was going to say, if that next night on Raw, during his speech as champion, Damian Priest cashes in, holy hell.
God, okay, that actually is better than Roman retaining. That will make my heart so happy. Okay, so make it happen.
Because to Gene's point, Dusty was the champion 3 times, and he held it for like a combined 120 days. So Cody could go right back to the chase,
I mean, I remember that big win at Bash '86 in the cage, and he dropped it back. Like he didn't hold it. I don't know, just a few weeks, and that reign was probably the shortest reign of all, I believe. He didn't hold it very long at all.
I mean, is Priest even advertised for a match? I know he wasn't one of any that we have read down.
Are him and Balor the tag champs or something? I think. I remember seeing something about a tag title match, but see, there's all these people posting these professional-looking thumbnails of predictions that they're making. Ray says 12-man ladder. That's it. That's what it is. It's a 12-man tag team ladder match.
See, I love this tag team qualifying 6-pack match they've had where Grayson Waller and Austin Theory win, and they're like, they may not be in the match. And I'm like, why did you have the qualifiers?
Yeah, it's wild, but I'm excited about it because again, there's none of these matches you can say without 100, with 100%. I mean, we all feel Rhea Ripley is going to win that title match, but if Becky won, I don't think anyone was going to be like shocked.
I think the only one I'd
disappointed, but not shocked.
I think the only one I'd probably like almost guarantee. I mean, I bet the mortgage on it would be Bayley winning, getting her WrestleMania moment. I mean, that seems to me pretty obvious, but you never know.
If not. If she loses, then somewhere along the way she has made somebody mad, and and she's getting payback. But again, Vince isn't there, so she may have. If he was still around, have been like, well, she might have shot him down, and now she's paying the price. But now that kind of thing's out the window, I think we'll see her get the big win. If not, then she can lose at WrestleMania, then go join her buddy over in AEW and make millions of dollars and do promos in front of an empty hard camera side.
One of the things I'm most curious of is what match is going to go on before Cody and Roman, because you've got to have some kind of buffer. The roller coaster. You can't put Rollins, McIntyre. You can't put one of your big ones right before the actual biggest one. So I'm just curious who's going to get put in what you unfortunately might call the popcorn match.
Well, I mean, you look back at I always think of WrestleMania 6, just before Hogan and Warrior, you had Rude and Jimmy Snuka, in a banger, as the kids say. But, and there's, a lot of the undercard women's matches that we get thrown in before the main event on some of those older ones. Ray says the Uso buffer. Well, that's
Uso buffer.
The old Jimmy and Jay is on there, but yeah, so it's going to be fun. I'm supposed to go watch night one with the Violent Gentlemen up in Albertville like we did last year. They don't want to do the second night because everybody's got to work the next day, so we're going to watch night one there, and then we're going to watch night two, I guess, at our own homes. So anyway, that should be interesting. We'll get to hear Xander's expert opinions on everything. Shane, you know how that goes.
Oh,
I'm sure anybody on the screen now is invited. If you want to make the ride up there, come on. I'll let you ride with me and Rosie. But all right, well, we thank everybody for listening, and we look forward to seeing who's right, who's wrong at WrestleMania, and what kind of surprises are going to happen. You never know. Old Stone Cold might show up. Old John Cena is bound to show up. He's stated in all these media outlets that he's free on WrestleMania night. Sting may not really be retired. Who knows? He may drop in and job to somebody because he's not going to win whatever he does. We already found that out. Triple H, just make sure of that. Just kidding. Still a little sore about that one, as we all are. I know Wes is. He's got that mask back there. Never forget. That's his wrestling 9/11. And on that note, let's hear from our sponsors. I want to thank Ray Russell for joining us in the comments. Of course, Ray from WrestleCopia. Great network of podcasts. I, of course, co-host the Memphis 1985 podcast, where we go back and review weekly episodes of Memphis from 1985. It's more fun than it sounds for people who are familiar with Memphis wrestling in 1985. It gets better. He also does one on 1986 UWF, Georgia 1981. He's currently covering WWF 1988. Just finished a huge podcast two-parter on WrestleMania 4. That was a lot of fun. He has a Patreon that's full of great content, so please go check that out, WrestleCopia.com. And here's a couple of other supporters of our show, and we will see you next Tuesday night. That is Tuesday, April the 9th at 9:30 p.m. for the big WrestleMania review, and we'll see who was right, who was wrong, and if Cody finished that damn story.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
50% 1980s Saturday Morning Wrestling, 50% Mystery Science Theater 3000, 100% not as good as either one. The Outlaw Wrestling Federation presents OWF Worldwide Wrestling. Please join me, broadcast Bob Anderson, and my co-host, Whitey Jenkins, as we call some of the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest wrestling action from the nicest backyards, bingo halls, county fairs, and volunteer fire departments across these United States and around the world, each and every Thursday, only on YouTube. For more, go to officialowf.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school, but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.